Welcome back to MMA Oddsbreaker. This week we get to talk to Lex McMahon, one of the managers for Alchemist, and are you COO, CFO of Titan? Like,
COO. Don't make me in charge of the money, man. We'll go shopping.
Good. I like you. I like you already. He's already.
That's right.
Perfect. You got a fight coming up here March 20th. Wow, it's actually pretty good. 4 title fights. Obviously going to be seen on CBS Sports. This one's being done in Alabama. Alabama just got their commission together. Why'd you choose Alabama as opposed to, I mean, you live in Florida. I mean, you could have gone to Florida. You could have gone Georgia. You could have gone anywhere. How come Alabama?
Yeah, man, we could have gone a lot of different places. But the opportunity to be a part of the Mobile Aerofest event, which is this multifaceted festival that includes music, arts, sports, food, all these amazing things. That opportunity presented itself, and as we talk further about what Aerofest is, it was just something we couldn't pass up, man. And I met with the commission in person in Alabama, Brandon Owens, who's their commissioner, and I'm confident they're going to do a great job. They've done other events. It's going to be the first nationally televised event that they'll have done since they stood this commission up, so a bit historic there. But we met. They're very dialed in. They take this real seriously, and I think we're a bit of a proving ground for them. I think in many respects, but I feel confident that we're going to get great treatment there.
Well, great for Alabama. It's unfortunate though if something goes wrong, because if I'm correct, and help me out if I'm wrong, but it's 90 million homes that CBS Sports is in, so that's 90 million people to see you screw up.
93 million. So let's get this right, guys.
Yeah,
But I mean. We've been working on this for quite a few months, and this particular event. I mean, honestly, since July. So, we've known where we were going to be. We've been in discussions with the commission for quite some time. This is just a really significant event, and hopefully they get it right. We believe they will, but that's ultimately on them.
So, are you nervous at all? You said you've been dialed in. You've been talking to them. You're hanging out. Is there anything behind you that you're kind of like, well, they got to kind of handle this one thing before we get set up. They got to handle this one thing before we actually go to the event on March 20th. Is there anything at all right now that kind of gives you a little bit of unease?
No, they've been amazing to work with. Like I said, I mean, they've really been over backwards to make sure that we understand their protocols and processes, and likewise they understand what we're trying to accomplish. And it's been very professional, and I'm very confident that they're gonna do their job. And we're going to have the right people in place from judging to referees, all that sort of stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, it's not good for the sport. It's not good for the promotion. It's not good for our athletes if we don't have the best possible level of professionalism across the board.
Well, this brings me to my next question. Is this the reason why? Because you want to be part of Aerofest so bad that you pushed an event? You basically skipped an event to make it so that you had all four title fights on one card. Is that your reasoning behind? Because we're supposed to have an event in between.
Yeah, we were. I mean, there was quite a few issues that we were looking at, and at the end of the day, let's have a conversation about what Aerofest really is and the reason behind it, and then you'll start to get a sense of why it's so important. The idea for Aerofest is that we're putting this week-long event on that has, like I mentioned, the food, the music, the sports, the what do we got here? That's 4: food, music, sports. I'm missing one.
Music, food,
you can edit
sports.
This out.
It's all right.
Edit this out for a second. Hold on, I'm blanking. You are going to edit this, right?
Maybe I won't. Maybe people want to see that you're actually human, Lex. Maybe people want to realize that managers actually have a heart and actually have, especially a guy like you who's a former Marine trying to take care of injured vets. That it's not something that a lot of people at home, and we'll get into this in a minute. The UFC new drug testing policy. People forget that there's going to be issues. There's going to be problems. People at home, the fans forget that fighters and managers, we're human, and sometimes we make mistakes. Like all they see is that the Alchemist team and how good the fighters are doing. All they see is, Gegard Mousasi all of a sudden wins a fight. That's all they see. They don't see, sometimes look, man, Lex has got to go back and look at his notes. They don't realize that you're a guy like the rest of us,
No. Listen, man, it happens. At the end of the day, what this thing though is really about is, you know, it's getting all these various, you know, entertainment components together from 40 bands and like you and I were talking about beforehand. You know, Big and Rich, Matashayu, Cowboy Troy, you know, on and on and on. Lieutenant Dan Band with Gary Sinise.
Lieutenant Dan. I want to come in just to see him play.
Yeah, man, and there's so many cool bands. There's about 10 more really killer bands that we're going to announce here coming up in the next week or so. But you know, you've got that, then you've got the 4 title fights, 14 total fights, you know, that Titan's putting on. So it's a big card. You know, we're doing some community outreach with Shannon Lee and the Bruce Lee Foundation and some Navy SEALs and some Medal of Honor recipients and the Titan fighters going out into the schools and doing anti-bullying campaigns. You know, we're doing the weigh-ins on the USS Alabama, this iconic battleship. Never been done before, man. Like, it's gonna be amazing to see 4, you know, guys lining up to fight for titles on the deck of the USS Alabama. You know, that's gonna be incredible, and that's the magnitude of this sort of event. But what it's really all about is we've got 4 veteran organizations that we're behind, that we're gonna raise awareness for, and then we're gonna endow. Aerofest is a non-profit organization. So unlike, you know, Coachella, you know, Bonnaroo, all these other festivals, those are for-profit enterprises. This is a non-profit enterprise, and what we're doing is we're trying to generate enough revenue that we can endow these 4 charitable organizations. You know, we've got the Independence Fund. They provide mobility devices to wounded vets. So, you know, these essentially track chairs that allow them to get outdoors. And go hunting, fishing, you know, just camping, whatever it might be that they haven't been able to do because of the nature of their injuries. Those chairs cost $15,000 a piece. Wow. They've given away 1,000 of them so far. You know, wow. They are an amazing organization doing amazing things. You know, Bill O'Reilly talks about the organization all the time. You know, he's really behind them. We've got A Hero Foundation. I'm on the board of directors for that. You know, we take a bunch of wounded vets out. We take them hunting, fishing, UFC events, Titan events, SEC footballs, Zach Brown concerts, like you name it. The idea is to get these wounded guys out and put in a fun environment where they begin to loosen up a little bit and put them with people who are similarly situated. Like, you know, the average person who hasn't served in combat can be empathetic to what those individuals go through, but they really can't understand it. No one can understand it. I'm a Marine Corps vet, and you know, even for me at this juncture, because my experience in Somalia, you know, was a very, you know, intense experience. You know, gunfire, you know, mortars, RPO, the whole thing. It wasn't the type of kinetic combat that these guys have had to deal with for years, over a decade. These guys are effed up, man. And so the idea is to get these guys together and have them kind of self-heal. You know, you get some similarly situated people together, they start talking, they open up, and the next thing you know, they've had a good time, they've talked through some issues, but when they get to a dark place, and those dark moments come where they contemplate suicide, and they've got a support network they can reach out to. And what's interesting, all these organizations that Aerofest are behind, you know, the Gary Sinise Foundation, they build these smart homes that cost $500,000 each that are adapted to help a wounded veteran, you know, have a more comfortable lifestyle and be able to manage themselves. And then also Lakeshore Foundation, which also does mobility devices. All of these organizations are really designed to help in one goal, and that's to reduce the level of veteran suicide. This is the overarching, you know, absolute epidemic that we're dealing with. So the numbers, you know, I think truly tell the story, Frank. Since 9/11, we've lost about 6,000 service member in combat. Now, that's a horrible number. 1 is a horrible number, you know, but 6,000, that's a huge number. Now, look at it, that 22 veterans a day are taking their own lives. 22 a day, man. 365 days a year, that's over 8,000 veterans are taking their own lives. That's, you know, if you look at it since 9/11, that's over 90,000 that have taken their own life. And that's a massive problem.
And it kind of gets missed.
Aerofest's mission.
It kind of gets missed by us because it's not. Oh, he didn't die in Somalia. He didn't die in Afghanistan. He didn't die in Iraq. He died. He died in Alabama. He died in Las Vegas.
Some wounds you don't see, man.
Yeah.
And this global war on terror, because it's an all volunteer force, and these guys have deployed. Not, they didn't just go once. Like when I went to Somalia, I had to go twice, and that was pretty rough. I spent almost a year and a half overseas. These dudes have been gone. I have one of my friends, a Navy SEAL, did 17 deployments.
Yeah.
Over the course of his, 12 years, 17 deployments to combat theaters, man. That's rough. You want to tell me that a guy like that isn't affected, and that's a common issue. And so Aerofest is designed to endow these charitable organizations who all have a unique way of addressing. And so we're going to endow them. We're going to raise awareness about them, and we're going to do a lot of really cool stuff with the veterans that we bring into the event itself. We're bringing in a couple hundred wounded vets into the Aerofest week.
Of course, because I'm biased, being a former MMA fighter and now a commentator and referee, what better way to do it than having everything? Of course, in my mind, it's all wrapped around Titan. It's all wrapped around the fights. You talk to somebody else, it's all wrapped around the music. You talk to somebody else, it's all wrapped around the art or the food, like depending on where your hierarchy goes. But what a great way to bring art, music, sports, and food together is than having this Aerofest and helping out wounded veterans. Do you see? This is just a week-long thing. It's going to help. Maybe might help somebody. Maybe not. Get them down the right path. Get them started. Do you see an end to this? Like, do you see a real? You're a guy that has a goal. You became a Marine because you like having missions. You have a goal at the end of it. You come back. You talk over the goal. You have a goal of getting one of your fighters in a title fight. You have a goal of running a promotion. You did that. You got it done. Do you see these suicides coming to an end, or at least cutting it in half at some point? Going from 9,000 to 4,500 would be a huge thing for all of our military personnel. We just cut the suicide rate in half.
Yeah, Frank, I mean, the veteran suicide rate is more than double what the civilian suicide rate is. And, that's a direct reflection of what we ask these young men and women to do on behalf of the defense of our nation. And all volunteer force, and many folks have served a very long time, like we were talking about, not just 1 or 2 combat deployments, but, upwards of 10 or more. I think that this is going to be a problem that as a society, it's incumbent on us to deal with, but we're going to be dealing with it for a long time. So, my philanthropic passion is the military and supporting veterans. Yeah. It has been since the day I left active duty. I will always be a champion for these causes. I think that our nation as a collective needs to do more. So what I plan on doing, and what I'm doing with Aerofest and with all the folks that are involved in this thing with me, is attention is possible. My thought about holding the Titan weigh-ins on the USS Alabama wasn't, that's going to be a cool photo op. It will be, for sure. It'll be great as part of the opening montage on CBS Sports, leading into the fights. But what really was intriguing about it to me, it was a first time. It was a historic event that would garner national attention. And I could leverage that to tell the story about these veterans and what we're trying to accomplish. And I think people doing that, the more we'll have a positive impact. I can tell you that these proactive things do work with the A Hero Foundation, which is one of the foundations that I'm on the board for. I can give you our anecdotal information, right? Like we've brought in the past, I think it's 5 years, just about 500 wounded veterans to different events. Okay. During that time, from our alumni, we've not had one incident of suicide. Oh. And you compare that against the national statistics. Yeah. Something is going right. It doesn't mean that a hero is doing something right. It means that something is going right by getting these people to engage with one another and, putting them in an environment that facilitates, an open dialogue.
When you came back from Somalia, did you feel like you had a support group when you got out of active duty? Did you feel like you had a support where you could go, okay, look, I feel this way. Let me talk to this person. Besides talking to your significant other or your kids, did you feel like you had any kind of support system?
No, and and I think part of that is a cultural thing within the military at the time. Mm-hmm. And if it was in the military, it certainly was in the broader society. you know, when I was, back in the old Corps, as we used to say, like way back when Christ was a corporal and, Ton Severn in 1775. But no, I mean, when I was in, it was frowned upon to say, hey, man, I'm hearing voices. I'm having a tough time coping. It was a sign of weakness. And as I was a non-commissioned officer, so as a leader, I could never show weakness. I will tell you this, man. Anybody who has been shot at, anybody who's been in combat, if they say they're not afraid, if there was no fear present, they're lying. Every single person, as a professional athlete who fought for a living, that cage door shuts and locks. I don't care who you are, how bad of a dude you are. There is a moment of self-doubt. There is a moment of question. And it's not defeating that before you step in. Rather, it's understanding how to leverage it and make it an offensive weapon. Fear keeps you sharp, man.
Yeah.
So it's a shame that during my time and my predecessor's time that wasn't understood. But one of the byproducts of this unfortunate battle that we've been waging for 14 years is that we have had some significant learnings. And one of them is that PTSD is real and it needs to be treated and addressed, and we need to stop these, what are the ultimate consequences of PTSD is veteran suicide.
Yeah.
So, the military is doing a better job.
Right.
But the problem comes not within the military, but when a guy leaves active service, goes back to small town America, they're not near, maybe they may not be anybody that they served with anywhere near them. May not be a lot of veterans with them. Because keep in mind, less than 1% of the American population has served in this volunteer force in the global war on terror. So, man, you're in a room of 100 people, you're the only dude who served.
Wow.
It's a crazy statistic, right?
It is. Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so, it's one of those things, man, where you go to small town America, you don't have the resources that the military had institutionally for you. And so you begin to slip down this very slippery slope, and it's easy to find yourself in a dark moment, man. I tell a story about my friend who is the founder of A Hero. His name's Captain Lee Stuckey. He's a Marine Corps captain. He actually just got home 2 days ago from deployment. He had been in Iraq, been in Afghanistan. He was a Fallujah vet. He saw some stuff, man, did some things, and got blown up, ended up with TBI, traumatic brain injury, and then ultimately, as a result of that, and the medical consequences of that TBI, and dealing with the loss of his Marines, he developed PTSD. Okay. So he was at a point, about 5 years ago, where he had his phone sitting on the table next to him, and he had the barrel of his .45 in his mouth.
Oh, wow.
Getting ready to squeeze the trigger. Literally, like, pulling the trigger. The phone rang, and he looked at it. He didn't pick it up. He looked at it while he had the gun in his mouth, and it said Mama. He's from Alabama. So when you ask why Alabama, this is part of the nexus of it as well, because A Hero is an Alabama organization.
Okay.
He looked at it, he saw it, took the gun out of his mouth, answered the phone, began weeping, told his mom, this is what's about to happen.
Wow.
And she said, baby, come home. Come to Alabama. And he did. The family owns a farm, and he started going hunting and fishing and spending time with some of the, the Vietnam and World War II and Korea veterans that were in the area and the community. And, Alabama has a very rich, it has actually one of the highest numbers demographically of veterans within the United States, that Gulf Coast region.
Yeah.
So, he started feeling better, man, and he started thinking about things with more clarity. And he said, you know what? I'm a Marine Corps captain, pretty badass dude. If I'm having these thoughts, obviously something's wrong. Right. And if I'm having these thoughts, but I put myself in this environment and it helped, maybe it'll help others. So he started a Hero Foundation. He reached out to me and he said, "Hey, brother, this is what's going on. I need your help." I said, "Yeah, you got it, man." And I haven't been involved, ever since, and been a board member, but that's what this is about, man. Is guys like that and those visceral experiences, and how you can begin to stop these things by putting in the right kind of support network.
Wow, that's and of course, if you want to take a look at the card, see what's happening, try and get yourself down there. It's aerofest.org. That's aerofest.org. Lex is obviously very passionate. If you've spent any time at all with Lex, he is passionate about a lot of things, but you'll never hear him talk as passionately as he is now about this and this coming on. Is there going to be more Aerofest, and is Titan going to be attached to the Aerofest now going forward? Is this part of the plan?
Well, we're working out the details now. I think we need to have, this Mobile Aerofest 2015, March 20th and 21st. That's the proof of concept, right? If this thing comes off well, we already have cities like Seattle, Nashville, and Key West that would love us to come in and do it. Now, I'm on the board of directors for Aerofest, so you can begin to see how, as COO of Titan FC and being on the board of directors of Aerofest, things began to come together. I believe that the idea is, with Titan, we offer a tremendous platform, and being able to bring 93 million folks, viewers, to what's going on. The festival experiences typically aren't televised.
Right.
We're going to have camera crews out throughout the entire week of festivities and events, filming things. So that's going to be built into our live telecast on the 20th.
How long?
The opening montage will be. I mean, we even have a drone that's going to be coming over the bayou, flying in over the USS Alabama, and then hovering right over the dudes as they're weighing in. You want to tell me about a powerful shot? That's going to be part of our opening montage. On CBS.
How long is the airtime on the night of the fight? You guys only have 2 hours, or you got 3 hours? Yeah,
we've got 2 hours.
Okay.
So you can do the math. We're going to have to be creative about.
Yeah.
I think a lot will be driven about how the fights go, but we've got plans in place that will dictate what fights go where, and there's things in the works that I think they're going to allow this.
I mean, if you look at
to be seen.
You look at it from a TV standpoint. There's four title fights, which is 5 rounds each. Each fight could go about 30 minutes. You're looking at 25 minutes plus the 4 minutes in between, plus walk out, walk in. You're looking at 40 minutes. If all these fights go long, easy segue.
We have the benefit of the stream.
Yeah. Yep. And then the other piece I'm going to ask you is, of the four...
We have the benefit of the stream, and the reality is we've gone overtime every single time we've done a show.
Okay, that was the other thing I was going to mention, like the CBS...
So we're planning to do everything possible to avoid that.
Right. Well, let's talk about the fights real quick. Of the four...
CBS has been a great partner. They actually didn't have this time slot available for us.
Oh.
Yeah.
So CBS switched the time slot for you because to make sure this thing worked out correctly?
March Madness, man. Think about what we're in the middle of. It's March Madness. There's West Coast basketball games going on, brother. There's a event, or they have a show on after us. That's their NC2A tournament wrap-up show. And I just went to them and I said, look, man, here's what this is about. It has to be on this date. They're like, well, we can give you Thursday, and there was just a lot of reasons that the 3/20 date worked for us, and it was the date we really had to have. And to their credit, man, they figured a way to make it happen. So,
good for them.
CBS, one of the things I came to know about them is they've been a very good partner to us in many respects, but where I really connected to them is it's part of their organizationally, their goal is to get behind more veteran organizations.
Okay.
So this made sense for them. It made sense for obviously us, and we were able to make it work, man. But they, hats off to them because they really are doing a significant solid for us by moving some things around in the middle of their March Madness coverage, which is by far the biggest thing they do all year.
Real quick, just because we're running out of time, of the 4 championship fights we're talking about, they could run you over again. Which one of these fights do you think is definitely going to be done before the 5th round? It's definitely going to be ending some kind of a finish.
Man. I honestly think Pat Healy, Kurt Kinser.
The lightweights, yeah.
Yep, they're going to get after it. everybody knows how Pat fights, man.
Yeah.
He sticks his chin out. He goes for it. He gets in the middle of it and starts slinging leather. Nobody really knows Kurt Kinser, but they will after this fight. You know, kid's tough as nails, and he's a finisher. I think that fight probably doesn't go the distance. You know, Kurt Hollabaugh, Desmond Green, I think that probably does go the distance because they're both phenomenal athletes. And they could get caught. I see them just putting on an amazing fight, though, and going the distance. You know, the heavyweights, they always, you know, very rarely make it out of the first round, right? So it's possible that one doesn't go.
That's with these two, with Gormley and Madison. It's a crapshoot because they could nullify each other, and both of them have to go to the 5th round. And then as we know with heavyweights, as it gets further along, they start slowing down. There's less power, becomes real sloppy. Not because they're not training, it's just because you're talking about moving guys around the 250 pounds. It's a lot of work. And so I think that fight is...
Tell me about it. That's what I walk around at.
Well, yeah, but you're sitting behind a desk. You're not getting punched in the face all the time.
True.
With heavyweights, it's either going to be done the 1st or it's going to go to the 5th. It's just like one of those kind of fights. I'm really interested in
I also don't think the YL Watson Brett Johns fight is gonna make it out. A lot of people don't know Brett Johns either.
Yeah, at all.
But
very under the radar.
He's the #1 prospect coming out of Europe right now.
Yeah.
And YL he's like a magician, man. He finds a way to win, and he finds a way to win by finish, you know. And so I think that fight is either YL's going to submit Brett, you know, and they're gonna have a pretty nasty stand-up exchange, and it'll go to the ground, and YL submit Brett, or Brett will take him out.
Yeah, Brett will hit him with a quick three punch combo, and 2 of them will land. You know, Brett's got quick hands, strong hands, and hits like a brick. You know,
sure does.
Especially at the light. I mean, he's a bantamweight. It's not a heavyweighted guy, but he hits hard as hell. There's something right now coming out of Europe where all these guys, the smaller weights, are learning how to turn over on their punches long before the Americans are, and they're getting knockouts early. It's amazing to watch. It really is.
Yeah, for sure, man. We're excited. Like, and there's some fights on the undercard. Yeah. Like, I know we're running out of time, man, but just, you know, people take a look at this card. I think this is one of the best cards that doesn't have UFC in front of it for the entire year.
You can see all the fights on the stream, right? On CBS Sports Stream.
Well, no. So the televised fights won't be on the stream, but every other fight will be streamed.
So I can watch the stream up until the televised fights, and then jump over to CBS Sports. Okay,
you got it.
So somebody going to watch all 14 fights. If I'm not sitting ringside,
it's a great night, and then we're going to put in music. You know, some of the performances that are going on during the festival, because there'll be music going on Friday evening.
Okay.
We're going to intersperse some of that music into the event as well, in between rounds, to just give people a feel for what's really going on.
Cool. That sounds amazing. The last thing I want to do before we lay out here, thanks for spending so much time with us. I know you got a super busy schedule, and I know this is a big passion here, so I want to make sure that we had a huge amount of time blocked out for you. And I really do appreciate you coming on and explaining it. You give me a lot of stuff I didn't know about. You gave me a lot of numbers, and I didn't realize it was only 1%. And had volunteered for this force, because in my family, I'm the only pussy. Everybody else in my family volunteered. My 7 other brothers, there's 8 of us. My 7 brothers all went in, and 3 of them are still in. They're still doing federal service. One gets out, he's in Border Patrol. One gets out, he now works for the State Department. And one gets out, and he's over in Saudi Arabia teaching the Saudis how to work their radars on the F-15s we sold. So it's like they're still part of the services. Right. I was just the pussy that never would go in. I just couldn't handle it. I'm not man enough like the rest of them are, and like you are. So learn that 1% is, because in my household, I'm the 1%. It's so strange to hear that. There's so few of us that have actually gone in. It's weird. But I want to talk to you about the UFC drug policy that just popped up, just real quick. UFC always seems to be ahead of the curve. Like Lorenzo said in the broadcast, in 2001, they said they're never going to get it legalized through the provinces of Canada and through the United States. When they took over, it was only regulated in one state. They made that happen. Dana White, made that infamous. We're going to throw 100 fights in 3 different continents, throughout a year, and they're up around 52 now, or 54 or something in this year, and they're on 3 different continents. So obviously, he made that happen. He said, we always said there'd never be health insurance for fighters. Well, now he has health insurance for fighters. Now we have this drug policy coming in. Everyone gets tested, top to bottom, on day of competition. So all the fighters are going to get tested starting in July. Out of competition, the main event, the big title fight guys will start getting tested, outside of competition. They're trying to follow the WADA format of, if you get caught first time, it's 2-year ban. Previously, it's 9 months, so you really miss one fight, not that big of a deal. Sure. Will this change the look come November of 2015? The place, it's been established since July. Do you see it changing the face of MMA because there is a real problem of PEDs and recreational drug use in the fighters? Or do you see it really just being a slight adjustment, like the number one guys are going to be number one in November as they are right now? Or do you see a shift of number one, number two guys are going to start bouncing down, back down? Because I see a guy like Frankie Edgar, who I know for sure has been clean his entire career, can all of a sudden now be a resurgent, all of a sudden be the top of the heap. Because a lot of the guys above him are questionable. Are they or are they not? You're not real sure. And you can't go off a body look. Some of these guys are not going to have to adjust their training regimes, and there's something in intake that's just going to make them now have to drop down, and instead of being second or third on the ladder, they'll all of a sudden be like seventh or eighth. Do you agree with me? Do you see that change happening?
I do, but I think it's going to take time, brother. I don't think it's going to be November. I think that it's going to be something that's years in the making before you see the landscape really make a notable change. Because people aren't going to, how many times we've heard, oh, there's this testing coming or this. The reality is until, Anderson getting popped, followed by Hector Lombard and, all these notable guys, John Jones and Nick Diaz having recreational drug, testing positive, those are high-profile guys, and they create awareness and, in this case, action. But I think until this policy is in place for a while and guys, get that knock at the door in the middle of the night, I think until, that kind of makes its way through the ranks, you're not going to see a noticeable change. It's just, I was talking to someone at the UFC the other day, and, they gave me this great analogy. They said, what, the UFC is an aircraft carrier that has a rudder that is essentially a spatula. And it takes them time organizationally to make shifts because they're such a big organization.
Hold on a second, though. It doesn't take them time.
I agree with that. I think it's pretty, it's just 500 and some odd fighters.
They've come out with a policy on February 21st that they're going to implement by July 1st or 3rd or 6th or whatever. That's not a lot of time to get, logistically speaking, we're talking about 350 fighters, 900 tests being done over a year, 3 different continents, 14 different languages. Like, logistically, you're talking about our military can't get stuff together like that with NATO. Like, just trying to get NATO to work together with a different language.
And to their credit, to Dana and Lorenzo's credit, and the UFC's credit, they are, they're taking the initiative to institute the policy.
Right.
But my point is, the policy is going to take time to make its way through and become effective. I think in the long run, it's much better for the sport. I think there's going to be more guys like Anderson, guys that surprise the heck out of us, that get busted. When Lance Armstrong first got busted, people were surprised by it because he was the poster boy, right? I think you're going to see more guys that you just go, wow, I couldn't even imagine that, because the reality is it's part of the sport. Yeah. When UFC's data suggest that out of competition, 20% of the people they test are getting busted, I'm telling you the number's higher. Not that they got tested, just the number of people are using, and, being exposed to the sport as long as I have, and, as long as you have, it's there, man. Are you putting in place? This is a positive for us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Are you putting in place as a manager? Are you putting in place as a manager in the contracts with your athletes that going forward? Obviously not today because you got to rewrite some stuff. But are you putting in there? Hey, look, you've got to be clean and let them know that, like, this drug policy is, even if you're not in with the UFC currently, you're with whatever other promotion, and if your goal is to get up to the UFC or get up to Titan, you're going to have to be clean when you come through. I mean, are you already getting stuff set together for your athletes?
We've already looked at that in some respects, in part of our contracts. Not specifically spelling it out, but in a moral turpitude clause, and we certainly have discussions with guys about kind of, hey, like, at the end of the day, I'm not the guy who steps in the cage. I'm not the guy who trains 3 times a day year round. Like, my body isn't breaking down in the same way. So it's hard for me to say, wag a finger and say, don't do this, right? But the flip side of it is, I can say, here's why you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
And here's the consequences. Now there's real teeth to this. You know, 2 to 4 year ban.
That's huge.
That's monstrous.
It's a career
4 years is a career ender.
I haven't fought in
2 years.
I haven't fought in 3 years, and obviously, you know, CM Punk. You've seen it if you've been watching the internet. I'm like, I wouldn't even train. I wouldn't have to train to beat up CM Punk. But that's a little scary. Like, I would have to train. Like, I haven't done much in 3 years. I don't have to stay looking good on camera, but I'm not in shape to fight or whatever.
Sure.
It's a totally different ballgame. So when I left 3 years ago, can you imagine in a year from now getting cut out for 4 years how much the sport advances every month?
So it's not just physically. I think you lose a lot because you can't replicate what it is, in sparring or in technique training. You can't replicate what it is to fight somebody, because there's so many other factors from adrenaline to. But let's just talk about the evolution of the game, of the sport, right? Techniques come. The people now are so. You've got coaches like Faraz Zahabi who are incredibly cerebral, right? Yeah. They're breaking down things and they're teaching new techniques, and you just, man, the sport would be vastly different. If a guy gets busted and then 4 years later tries to come back, especially more so than like back in the early days, like the sport hadn't evolved as much, so it was still kind of a one-dimensional, one-discipline kind of sport. Now, man, you've got to be on top of all aspects of this sport. If you're not, you're gonna that deficiency in one or two areas will show through, and you'll pay the price. So imagine if you now have 4 years where you're not at the highest level, you're not competing against the absolute best guys. It would be a Herculean feat to come back and compete at the same level that you were at. After 4 years off.
Yes. No.
So I think it's meaningful.
Yeah.
It is a meaningful punishment, and let's see what really starts happening, man.
That's Lex McMahon, COO of everything underneath the planet. Every time I talk to him, he's on another board of directors. He's running something else. Aerofest.org. You got to check it out. If you can get to Alabama, you got to go. This is an amazing event. I'm actually trying to solicit Lex to bring me in for this one just so I can watch it, because I actually do want to see Gary Sinise and Big and Rich. I'm a fan, so I want to see him play live. But also, too, I want to be on the USS Alabama for this weigh-in. I want to stand there and be on a ship like that with the history and watching you break history in front of 93 million people. That to me is an epic event, and props to you and congratulations, and thanks so much for bringing awareness to military suicide. It is an epidemic. I don't care what anybody says. It's an epidemic right now in the U.S. that is not being televised, that people are not talking about, and it's our brothers and our sisters and our cousins, and in some cases our parents are suffering from it, and we got to get them support. That's basically what Aerofest is trying to do, what Aerofest does, and as Lex said earlier, they have was it 500 you've brought to different shows, and so far you're 500-0 and doing well.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Look at you.
Beat me up.
Look at you. just some little old Marine guy just trying to make the world a better place. That's all I'm trying to do. Good for you, Lex.
Yeah. One little chubby old Marine trying to do something good.
It's working. It's working. Thanks, Lex, so much for spending so much time with us today. I appreciate it, man. And hopefully I'll see you in Alabama.
All right, brother. Thanks, Trigg. I'll talk to you offline, buddy.
Okay, man.
Cheers.